I'll just walk back a year or so ago when my team was very, very small, and we were scrambling to try and put together a program, I guess the first group to go through the online business liftoff program, and I was feeling just snowed. There was so much to do and not enough time, and I really needed some help. So I reached out. I went onto LinkedIn, and somebody had connected with me not that long ago, and had introduced themselves as being a crowd that helped supply virtual assistants. And I remembered that, and I went back and said to them, "Do you have anybody?" And they sent me two CVs, and I tried to organize interviews with both people, and I got some good responses, and basically ended up interviewing Steph. And Steph is the person we're going to be talking with today. So Steph, it's really great to have you here today. You've got your business, Virtual Associate Services, and you've been with us for ever since, basically, because I asked you to start straight away. So welcome.
Thank you, Judy. Yeah, that's correct. It has been over a year now. And I was so excited because I think it was the very first thing, I think one of the first in the actual job advert that came across, it was about contacting, Melbourne councils. And I don't think that appealed to a lot of people, which is fine because, it's completely, up to the VAs who want to apply. But I was at that point where I was ready to really sort of, get into my, to really sort of take off my business off the ground because I was doing ad hoc work. And yeah, believe it or not, you were my first sort of, part-time, full-time client. So
Yeah, that's kind of cool because it very rapidly became apparent that you were capable of doing a lot more than I was asking you to do, and so we basically ramped up your hours. Because I started small, I was experimenting, just wanted to make sure that it was going to work, and it did, and I could tell that you could do more, so I started to ask you to do more. And we'll get into exactly what you do for us a little bit later, possibly, because it's quite widespread. But before we do that, maybe you could just share with our listeners just a little bit about who you serve and why.
okay, sure. So I serve small businesses, anywhere around the 5 to 20, uh, you know 5 to 20 sort of employees sort of thing. But that's not to say I have a client that is a one-man band, and I have another client that's very big. So I really like variety. So my niche isn't very nutted down just yet, and that's absolutely fine by me. I enjoy working with all my clients, and that's what matters. What do I do for my clients? Well, I do really different things for each client. So with the OBL program, I help with the enrollments, help with social media, and a few other bits and pieces. And then, for another client, because he's not a very IT, he's a therapist, so he's not a very IT savvy person. He wanted me to integrate, this software for him so that he can use. So I've been doing that. I've been helping him with. I've pretty much been his right hand person. And my other client is, again, I'm actually a executive assistant to a COO of a company. And I lost a couple of clients because of COVID and stuff, but that's okay. I mean, only onwards and upwards sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought, definitely COVID's changed things for a lot of people, and both in good ways and bad ways, and it's
Mm.
just got to be able to sort of move with the times. For somebody who's wanting to bring somebody on board to basically help get started with some of those tasks that there's no time for, I think I'm just going to from my perspective, the way I did it was is that I first created a bullet point list of the things I needed done so that
Yes.
I could then speak with some authority to whoever it is I reached out to, and then could explain the role. And so I think that's a really important first step. But from your perspective as a virtual assistant who's
Mhm.
got potential clients coming, what do you think that what could a small business owner do in terms of preparing themselves for working with a VA that's going to help speed up the process and make it happen a lot quicker?
Sure. So I think you hit the nail on the head, Trudy, when you said just even having bullet points of what you want them to do is critical. Because, you know, virtual assistants aren't just admin-based people. They're web designers, they're bookkeepers, they're marketing people. There's, you know, every industry under the sun, you know, there is a VA role for. So knowing what you need help with is really important. And if you don't, that's okay, because a lot of VAs these days, they do like a discovery call or a complimentary call that I do as well. So if someone says, you know, oh, my head's all over the shop, I just need to speak to someone to see if they can get it out of my head, then, you know, they can speak to VAs and just have a complimentary call. And then the VA, by the end of it, will be able to tell them, this is what you're looking for, this is what you need someone to do. So then that way they've got a bit of clarity about what they want to do, because then after that comes, you know, how many hours a week do you want this person working on, you know, on whatever it is. And, you know, and of course, because small business is like your baby, you know, trust takes time, you know, and in some ways you have to be able to feel like the person that's working for you is trying to prove themselves, you know, maybe not the right words, but to a certain degree, you know, like I felt, like I personally feel with any new client, a good way to help establish trust and build that relationship is to show that I'll do the work and I'll make sure that, you know that I'm doing the work as well. Because once that trust and that relationship starts to build, then you might, as you said before, Trudy, you'll give me more work to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And just for transparency's sake, when I did get you to start helping out, I think it was only like 10 hours a week. It wasn't very much. But it was the ideal amount to basically be able to test what you could do, what you're capable of, and to be able to assure myself that you were going to do a good job. And obviously you did a fantastic job. So, but for somebody who's looking for a VA, that's the first step is make sure you're clear about what you need. If you're not clear, have a chat to get clarity, and then basically start small. Start with something small that's not going to put you at risk. It's not going to put their business at risk. Give them a chance to try, to show what they can do on a project or something like that.
Yes.
And then if they do a good job and it's been beneficial, it's either saved you time, which meant you can go and do something else on your business and work on your business instead of in your business. That's going to help you start to grow your business, which means you're going to start to generate more revenue. So I think that's really, really, really important. So just to follow up just a little bit about that. So let's just say somebody's
Sorry,
going.
can you pause for a sec, Trudy? So the other option is if you go to a directory like Virtually Yours, because you get the option of putting down, everything you want someone to do. And people have done this, small businesses have done this. So for example, they just did a brain dump, right? That will go out to all the VAs. And then the VAs that have a look at it and say, oh, I can do this, this, and this, and maybe I can team up with a bookkeeper because I'm not a specialist in bookkeeping, then, they will submit a proposal together. So,
Okay.
there's different ways of doing it, but through a directory, we've had a lot of small businesses just go, here's a brain dump, who can do this, who can't do this. And then, for example, we've had a couple where they've said, look, we just want to start with one VA. So we'll get them to start on these tasks. We'll see how we go. And then if we feel comfortable and that it's working, then we'll consider bringing on the other VA to do, for example, if something's really specialized like bookkeeping.
Oh yeah, no. So that's really pertinent because that relates back to the what I was saying. If you're not quite sure, go and have a conversation. And you're saying basically actually go to this directory or the platform, and just do the brain dump there, and then see what comes out of that. So I think that's actually really really useful to know as well. So here's my question though. So let's just say that one of, a listener is going, yeah, okay, I'm ready for this. I already know what I need, or at least I have a sense of what I need, or I know I can go to this directory and do a brain dump and I'll get help figuring it out.
Yep.
How does somebody actually make sure that they get a good VA?
Okay, so on the directory, you have all the profiles of the VAs. Okay, some of them are reference checked, and that happens through their clients, which I actually want you to do when it slows down a little bit, Trudy, if possible.
Sure.
So there are some VAs that are reference checked, and you can see, what they say about them, or you can just go on Google. A lot of them have reviews. And you can, look at the reviews and what, people are saying about these VAs as well. Because at the end of the day as well, Trudy, a lot of these VAs have families, so, and I know this is quite, general in saying this, but a lot of VAs will do their best because, the work they're doing is for their livelihood as well. Look, you're always going to get, one bad apple in the box or two. And that's why in some ways it's safer to go to a directory than just searching VAs, because you'll get a dime a dozen, onshore, offshore, all that sort of thing. So by going through a directory, you can check for reference checked VAs, or if they're not reference checked, but you like the look of them, you can just go on Google, search them, see how many reviews they have a look at the reviews, and you'll get a sense. And, there's no ever obligation, Trudy, that if you want to have a discovery call with a VA, that you have to sign them up. That's the other thing I think the listeners have to remember. At the end of the day, you're the customer, and it's completely your choice. So for example, if we had if you wanted to speak to me about some of the work you had and you weren't really feeling it, but you felt it with another person who you thought, was really getting or really understanding what your needs and requirements are, then great. You can even do a trial period and then, revisit the conversation as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. Now, can you just, because you keep talking about a directory, and now I know that this might be a little bit confusing to people, but there are such things as there's VAs who work by themselves, and
Correct.
you can sometimes find them on LinkedIn or other places,
Correct.
Upwork or Freelancer or whatever. There are agencies who specialize in providing VAs or virtual assistants, and you can go to them. And then there's things like what you're talking about, which is a directory, which is a place where you can go and hunt for people who might have the skills that you want. A little bit, not quite like a job board, but it's a directory. It's a directory.
Yeah, think about like the white pages. Like it's a white pages for VAs where you've got VAs with all sorts of skills that you can potentially need for your business. So it's almost like a one-stop shop.
Yep. So what's the name of the directory or the URL for the directory that you're on?
Yep. So it's virtually yours, and it's virtuallyyours.com.au.
Okay, cool. And so just out of curiosity, just in case listeners are going, that sounds like a business model I'd like to follow. What did you have to do to get onto that directory?
So it's like a membership. So you sign up to whatever level membership that you want. And Rosie Shiloh, who owns and runs the directory, is fantastic. For example, she's had people that say, look, I didn't get enough responses. Is there any way we can get more responses? Rosie will put it up in our Facebook community and say, hi everyone, we haven't had enough responses for this. If this is something you're interested in, please, submit your proposal to the client via the website. So it's all very structured, it's not just, willy-nilly sort of thing, Trudy. She does courses for the VAs, it's a wealth of resources for small businesses and VAs as well. So it's not just a directory.
Okay, no, that's cool. That's useful to know that, because I think that one of the things that could stop somebody starting a virtual assistant or virtual associate type business is that they don't know what they don't know, and they're afraid they're going to miss out on something, or there's gaps in their understanding of how the whole process works, and they just need somebody to guide them through that whole process and take away some of the risk factor
Absolutely.
for people. So I think that's really, really, really useful. So I just thought it was worth raising that and making sure people knew the difference between directory agency
Sure.
and a solopreneur, and the types of support that they get as well. So can when so let's once again let's think about I wanted to think about this from the perspective of a small business owner who's either thinking about or is ready to bring on somebody into the team to help with the types of things that a virtual assistant can help with. So what would be 5 questions that they would want to ask themselves before they did that?
Okay, so the 5 questions would be, what do I want the VA to do? How many hours roughly a week, do I want them working on my business? Third one is, we have a standard for paying VAs in Australia. Some people think it's too much, and some people think, it's too little. But at the end of the day, if you're working with Australian VAs, it's not too much, because you can talk to them at any point of the day. They speak the same language. You're getting, you're paying for the skill at the end of the day for them to do the work for you. So that's another quite an important one, is how much, are you willing to pay? Because you want to be transparent when you speak to someone as well, and look, so that's 3. And, what times do they work? Because as you know, Trudy, like me, I tend to stop working around 3:34 because I have to go pick up my daughter. If there's something urgent, that's fine. But, after that time, I usually like to spend that time with my daughter before I have to get her ready for bed. So that's 4. The 5th question is, I guess you can ask, like, you could ask the VA, how do you see this working? Because it's important from your perspective to gain the VA's perspective as well, as to, one, whether they can meet the deadlines, and, is there going to be, an issue, with our personality. So it's almost like an interview. You really want to be able to get comfortable with the person that you're talking to, so that even though it's over Zoom, it's sort of the same as face-to-face, you want to be comfortable with that person before you hire them. If for whatever reason your gut is telling you not to hire them, then don't hire them. You can keep searching. There are so many VAs out there. I think at the end of the day, you've got to listen to your gut. I didn't listen to my gut once upon a time, Trudy, with a client, and it fell apart. The relationship just didn't work, So I thought to myself, if I had listened to my gut and just said, look, I can refer you to this directive where you can get, another VA, then I probably would have saved myself the time and effort as well as her.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, because it's a two-way relationship.
Absolutely.
It has to work for both sides, and if it doesn't work with both sides, it is going to fall apart. And it's unfortunate because it's frustrating on both sides.
Absolutely.